The first X-Files when UFOs appeared over World War I battlefields. Did the Red Baron actually shoot down a flying saucer, or did angels save the men of British troops on the battlefield of World War I? Elias Seatoni said it and reports, such questions must be answered by a group of British intelligence officers who will investigate the strange sightings in the sky during the First World War. Most of us believe that UFOs and mysterious sightings in the sky are a modern phenomenon, but sightings of unidentified objects have been occurring since ancient times. We even have reports of them appearing and helping Alexander the Great. So they've been occurring since ancient times, sometimes in clusters and sometimes individually. During the early years of the 20th century, we had a flurry of sightings that caused public panic, as they regularly appeared in newspapers, culminating in World War I, where a more specific approach is necessary. Nigel Watson, author of the book UFOs of the First World War, says the book can be regarded as the first official guide to the study of UFOs long before the CIA or any other organization became interested in the subject. During the First World War, there were many reports of mysterious lights and objects moving in the skies. These were studied by the Assistant Director of Military Aeronautics, Lieutenant Colonel W.S. Brancker, and Lieutenant Colonel Kell of the then Secret Service, predecessors of MI5. Brancker and Kell can be seen as the first Mulder and Scullys to study the UFO reports that came into their office, says Nigel Watson. Lights in the sky? One of the incidents came in a telegram to Brancker and Kell's office in 1914 from a Lancashire commander saying, "Large red lights seen at 8:45 p.m. today, passing over a bridge at Ant Arches. Soon after, an explosion was heard in the districts of Widnes and Runcorn. Guidelines set by the War Office help officers categorize sightings as natural in origin or something more mysterious." Flying saucers? Various UFO myths have circulated about the First World War, the most surprising and improbable of which is that the German ace pilot, the Red Baron, shut down a UFO. Fellow pilots of the Red Baron claimed after the war that Baron Manfred von Richthofen shot down a saucer-type flying craft, from which the two diminutive occupants escaped. So two tiny aliens, I guess. Now, German pilot Peter Waitstrick stated that he and his colleagues saw an aircraft like an upside-down saucer. He said, "We were terrified because we had never seen anything like this before. The Baron immediately opened fire and the object fell and crashed into the forest." End quote. The story is admittedly highly dubious, however, given that Waitstrick told the story not immediately after the war, but 80 years after the event, to U.S. newspaper The Weekly World News. The missing soldiers. Many UFO enthusiasts claim that aliens have abducted soldiers from the battlefields of World War II. Something like this also happened in World War I, when hundreds of men disappeared, quote unquote, in a cloud during the Gallipoli campaign. Witnesses claimed to have seen British soldiers advancing towards Hill 60 in the Sulva Bay area of Turkey on August 21st, 1915, when they were immediately grabbed by a cloud, quote unquote. The statement from an alleged eyewitness published in 1965 said, "When they reached this cloud, they marched straight into it without hesitation. But no one ever came out to fight after that. About an hour later, this cloud very subtly rose from the ground, reaching the other clouds in the sky and moving northward." The story seems false. Documents released after the armistice show that 180 soldiers were found behind enemy lines and are probably the ones who disappeared, so the cloud story is a myth. Now, the Angels of Mons, M-O-N-S, the Angels of Mons, and I'll do another video on that, but the Angels of Mons, in the bloody and particularly disastrous for the British, the Battle of Mons, was one of the first in which the British faced the Germans, and despite the retreat, only 1,600 lives were lost. There were reports of angel-like luminous entities stopping the Germans during the retreat of the British, resulting in thousands being saved. Decades later, the debate still rages while the incident making headlines. Now, we do have angels like this, giant angels of light. Even in the Old Testament, you'll find that specifically mentioned in the Maccabees, book of the Maccabees. The Maccabees weren't able to see them, but the enemies would see them. They would drop all their armor and run off. So that's, these angel entities also in the Battle of Marathon. One of the warriors of the Athenians, there was a battle against the Persians. When the Persians landed in Marathon, the Athenians were against them. I think it was, the Persians were like 6-1 against the Athenians. But the Athenians, as we know, won the battle. But they had the help of these giant light beings. And one of the Athenian warriors went blind by looking at this laser-like sword weapon that one of these angel-like entities had, raiding down and cutting down the Persians on the beach. Now, when the Athenians went to the Oracle of Delphi asking about what that entity was, the Oracle told them, you have to think of him as one of your heroes, she said. So we do have entities like this, the angels of Mons. Now, decades later, concerning the World War I angels of Mons, decades later, the debate still rages with the incident making headlines. The popular author Arthur Machen claimed that this myth originated from the article of his entitled The Bowmen, published in the Evening News, September 29, 1914. In the article, he refers to the Battle of Mons, and specifically to the efforts of a group of his soldiers who, while fighting desperately against the overwhelming German attacks, one of them invoked the spirit of St. George. He saw before him, beyond the ditch, a series of figures surrounded by a glow. They were like men who drew their bows, and with one shout, a cloud of arrows flew whistling through the air towards the German positions. Let's remember that the patron saint of England is St. George. And we do have instances of where saints have been helping Christians in wartime. We do have. Now, Nigel Watson, author of UFOs in World War I, said, even today the story is controversial. Theories about the phenomenon range from it being a myth based on the Machen story, a product of hallucinations due to the stress and exhaustion of the soldiers, actual intervention by angels, visitations, ghosts, hallucinations from natural gas in the area swamps, UFOs, and other. This I've translated from a Greek article for you. Fascinating, isn't it? Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support, and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.